Elevation Nation. This next guest, I'm going to introduce him first as the mysterious man who I overheard and eavesdropped on in the lobby of my apartment building. Let me paint the story for you all. I'm hitting golf balls in the golf simulator in our lobby area, in our lounge, and there's all these people bustling around, having snacks and drinks on the other side of the room. And I'm eavesdropping, as I always do, and I hear all these people seem to be entrepreneurs, which piques my interest. So as the room clears out, there's two guys cleaning up, and of course I'm nosy, and I asked, what was this event? And the man who shook my hand was Chase. Now, Chase is coming to us on the podcast. I am so excited that we set this up. A little bit of serendipity, if I do say so myself, the fact that we were able to meet, connect, and now we have so many people in common. If you've listened to Elevation Nation, Chase has worked with the Rasa guys, some friends from Maryland in Give Butter, and he also knows all of the next gen community. So it was fate that Parker and I were able to meet Chase Damiano. We are so excited to have you on Elevation Nation today to just enlighten us and talk about your story, how you transitioned out of the corporate world, and what you're doing now with your two companies that you founded. So, Chase, welcome to Elevation Nation, man. We are so excited that we could make this happen.
Oh, yes. What an intro. Shrouded in
How
mystery.
could I not?
Here we are.
I mean, what a story. That we could end the podcast there. It was literally incredible. We just started talking and you know, one thing led to another. I mentioned next gen, and all of a sudden we realized how many friends we had in common. And I was like, Chase, I gotta introduce you to Parker, then we gotta have you on the podcast. So I'm excited for this.
Yeah, one of those universe moments where just like, all right, we're here. Universe says we gotta meet, and here we are.
Chase, you know, it's funny, like, I know you work with plenty of entrepreneurs. You know, Sam and I are on this journey for 4 years, and we always have those moments like, Sam, I gotta call you. Like, something just happened that's really, really cool, and I want to tell you about it. Like, you know, that you always have those moments. And I remember when Sam was like, Parker, something really, really crazy just happened. Like, I was just hitting golf balls. I met this guy, Chase, entrepreneurship, all sounds good. Got to have him on the podcast one day, and just got to meet him. So here we are. I love it. It's absolutely really
I love
cool.
that.
Full circle. Like the Rasa guys. I mean, we only had Rahul on, but we had an amazing conversation with him, and it's just like so cool to see like how the world is so small, but yet so big at the same time. So we're gonna get into all of this, but it is Elevation Nation. So Elevation Nation needs to hear your elevator pitch. Who are you?
Ooh, who am I? I am. So first of all, that's the first answer. I am. But I wear a lot of different hats on top of that. So first and foremost, I'm a father of a 12-year-old. I'm also a partner in a loving relationship to my partner in crime, Jordan. I am a coach. I help entrepreneurs. I serve them in changing their perspective, mindset, and helping them with the tactical pieces of leadership and operations. I'm also a founder myself. I love creating companies. I am so many more. And
I love that statement, though, Chase.
Right? Yeah, I am. You like that?
I mean, I think it's beautiful, right? Because in an elevator pitch, as we all were trained in business school and, you know, being in the corporate world, right? Chase being at Accenture for a while in big consulting, like Parker and I are, you're trained, all right, elevator pitch. You got 20 seconds. Who are you? Like, pitch yourself. How can you sell yourself so short as a human being to explain who you are in 20 seconds that it encompasses all of your pros, your cons, your struggles, your goals, your dreams, your aspirations? And I think by you saying I am, we're all evolving. We all are different people at different times and are trying to elevate ourselves to be the best versions of ourselves we can be. And so that question is tough on purpose, and I think how you answered it is beautiful.
I agree with you. And, you know, something I found just living in the DC metro area for the past decade is, you know, the first answer to that question usually is something about your career, your job, or like, what are you doing in terms of work? And it almost feels like, you know, it almost like very reactionary. the answer to that
Is
question.
it sad that like that's what it's become to? It's like you're describing who you are as a person, and it goes right to work. People just think it's right to work because we grab so much self-worth out of what we do. But there's so much more to who we are beyond work. But yet we're just like wired to go right there. And that's why I love what you said too, because you started with the things that are most important to you, which is your family. And, then you went into the other pieces. It's just weird that we're just so wired that way.
Yeah, I'm not sure what it is, but it seems that there's maybe this culture around, maybe something around status or something around like worth. It's like, okay, is this by showing you my business card and resume as my introduction, I'm presenting myself maybe as worthy of speaking to or worthy of getting to know. Don't dismiss me because of my experiences. Actually, I have a lot of experiences that I'm very proud of. And so maybe it is a self-worth sort of thing. I've definitely have felt that before myself. I have no doubt others do too.
I think it's so true. And Parker and I recently did a Fortitude and 15 podcast where we talked about the concept of self-worth and how that impacts, I think, our generation. We're in this constant comparison game. So I think it's perfect, but there's a human behind all of these titles and attributes and who you work for on the Hill and all this stuff, right? There's a human being with a family and pros and cons and a life that they're trying to live. And so one question that I think kind of can shed some light on who you are, Chase, at your core, and I love this question, is what did you want to be as a child? What did you want to be growing up? What did you want to do? What were your goals and dreams, I guess, beyond work, but what was that vision you had for yourself as a young kid?
As a young kid, I was really into Legos, and I was really into this builder set called Capucella. Y'all heard of this? They had
I know Legos.
Yeah. It's kind of like a crossover between Connects and some battery powered stuff that allowed you to build structures or move things across.
Very
It's
cool.
like Lego Connects.
It's like Legos
Lego
to
Connects was a thing.
the next level.
Yeah,
Whatever,
similar.
adding the electricity aspect or something. I don't know. I have no idea what they are, but it sounds cool.
Yeah. It was very builder friendly and build your own car, build your own machine. And then I also played this game on MS-DOS. It's like this is the time where you didn't, not everything ran on Windows operating system. You had to go to terminal and start MS-DOS. It's like a game called The Incredible Machine, which also was almost like a puzzle game where you all familiar with Rube Goldberg machines?
No, enlighten our listeners.
Rube Goldberg
myself.
machine. Yeah, Rube Goldberg machine is a machine that does a very simple task in a completely unnecessary and absurd way. So, for instance, if you create a machine that turns off your alarm clock by pulling a lever, then what that does is actually takes the bowling ball on your shelf and rolls it down to knock over a vase, which then hits the tennis ball, which then rolls over on the other side of the room and takes the ping pong ball and rolls that down, and then eventually hits a hammer that then turns off the clock. So that was sort of the stuff that I was into growing up, this idea of building and creating and solving puzzles. So back then, what I wanted to do was, I was interested in space and astronomy. I was half interested in the body in terms of being a doctor, but that didn't really resonate. But what did resonate, especially in high school, was chemistry. I was really fascinated by this whole universe that is microscopic, that we can't even see, and it explains a massive amount of interactions and even day-to-day living through chemistry. So I had felt that applying something in chemistry would be the right direction I want to go in.
It's funny, all those different options and paths and where you're at now, because I feel like with what you're doing and working with human beings, and I'm going back to that kind of all plays into the thought process behind some of your dreams and aspirations as a young kid, right? Building something complex, right? The chemistry of how things interact with each other, all those aspects seem to kind of feed into your entrepreneurial path right now, which is amazing. If you want to go into it, we'd love to hear a little bit about the two companies you founded and how you kind of ended up here as well.
Yeah. So when I graduated school and had a degree in chemical engineering and economics, and thought I had like a dream job lined up for myself, and it was to do design engineering for big chemical companies that wanted big $1 million processes changed so that they can make 1% more like mass material from their plant every day, that sort of thing. And I just thought that the element of design was just so intriguing. It was like this intersection of design and creativity and mathematics that I really liked. And however, the job location was really difficult because in my while I was at university, I had my son, and he at that time was living with his mom in the Washington, D.C. area. So after school, I ended up deciding to go live in the DC area so I could be close to my son, which led me down the path of applying and getting a job at Accenture. So already right there is like a really big shift in terms of, where that led, because as you all very well know, that's business consulting is very different than, chemical plants. So, but what that opened up was a way to use creativity and systems that I had learned, and also the economic aspects that I had learned from school, and apply them in a totally different way, and being able to be close to my son during that time. And that essentially explained what had happened with my time at Accenture. Working with multiple clients, gravitating towards the emerging technology and innovation field. I think they call it Accenture Interactive now. Or Accenture Labs, and then eventually like pulling me down a pathway of entrepreneurship.
It's so. Go ahead, Parker.
Were you talked about? I mean, I just feel that when you were younger, you were always building something, you were always creating, you were always solving problems, and that's the entrepreneur mindset in a nutshell, right? Like you're at Accenture and you're able to build, you're able to speak your mind and be creative, but we all know that in a corporate environment sometimes there's some gates that are just naturally up that you can't go past. When you were there, were you thinking about bigger ideas? Wow, I want to start a company. Wow, I want to solve this problem. And obviously I'm teeing up the question because you eventually left and went to a startup, but when you were there, you had was this the idea place that you wanted to be, or you started to think like, wow, I can change my life by doing and creating even more than I am right now?
Yeah, that's a good question. When I was there initially, it had felt that, I mean, look, let's be honest. It's like I was dirt broke in college, and all of a sudden I'm, now making consultant money. It's like, oh my God. This is just, it felt like a massive windfall into my life, and which was fun for a while. And, putting that to use, saving a lot, getting out of college debt a lot, but also like having a lot of fun with it. And eventually it hit a point where I kind of like saw the writing on the wall of what life as a consultant could be like for me. And I felt I was in a role that I had like really great managers to guide me in. I had really great clients that I worked with. But I also like felt sort of a deeper sense of purpose that was missing. I felt that I could contribute more or differently. And I felt that I was capable of a whole lot more, but just not in an environment that would like really like let that rip, if that makes sense. And those were the thoughts that I started having, and I read a bunch of books on startups, entrepreneurship. I also attended a it is a startup weekend. So startup weekend is essentially like 60 hours over a weekend for you and a team to like build out a startup idea, get voted by a panel of judges, get some startup money. Doing things like that was like really allowed me to see is like, okay, cool. I feel energy here. And it made the option of me leaving what was felt at the time like safe, corporate, predictable, and move into something a lot more uncertain, but ultimately rewarding for me.
And let's talk for a minute about that uncertainty, because I think, Elevation Nation has a lot of people that are just starting their first jobs. They've been told by their parents and society and family, this is the path for you. Get a stable job, a lawyer, a doctor, a businessman, right? That's tough. It is tough to hear those things and divert from that so-called plan, right? So I would love if Chase, you could get a little, deep and introspective. Parker and I love getting the shell out of people. Is how did that feel, man? Like I didn't even do it, and it's scaring me. I'm starting to sweat, right? Yeah. Like that is a huge jump when you have a family to take care of, realizing that you're not feeling fulfilled, you have more potential, and that now everything, every meal you have to put on the table is on you. How did that feel?
Yeah. So going back to when this was, this might have been 2014, and at that time I had recently rolled off a client project, and I was sitting on the bench. So for those who don't know what that means, it's like you don't have a client, you might help out a director or senior manager with odds and ends, maybe proposals, but if it was anything like my experience, there was not a lot of accountability, and I had a remote position. So during that period of time, I felt myself, just having interest in other areas. I taught myself Python programming and Android coding just honestly kill time and see, do I want to be a programmer? I don't really know. Also during that time, my son also moved with his mom to Japan for a assignment overseas. She was in the U.S. Military during that time. So I also knew that if I wanted to, I knew I also wanted pathway to be in Japan a lot. But the path of English teacher, which is, the easiest way for Americans to get there, did not have a high probability of me even seeing my son, any more frequently than about a month or one time per month. And so that didn't seem that didn't seem like it was quite it either. So I recall during this particular period of time where a former coworker of mine, he and I had kept in touch, and we got on the phone together while I was overseas in Japan, and he had been running his own company for the previous year, and we were just getting to talking, and we both just knew that there was energy here, and we also both knew that I didn't necessarily want to go back to Accenture to just like sit at home and code Python. Is like to maybe try something different. The feeling of the decision in order to get myself over the hurdle was really about a risk assessment, where at that time I was, earning a decent salary. I was also like living in a house with a bunch of people, and Accenture had benefits such as like taking a leave of absence, unpaid leave of absence, and that was something that could be pulled with very, very little risk. You'll have your job when you return. So I told myself, it's like, okay, I'm going to take a leave of absence with no pay. I'm going to try this out for a 3-month period of time. And then I'm going to check in at the end of that 3 months and then, see where things are at. And that allowed me to have like the mental narrative that this wasn't permanent. I didn't want it to be. That this wasn't some big decision where I'm opening door A or door B and it was irreversible and that was it. So I wanted to create a lot of mental reversibility. And in fact, so much so that I felt convinced that folks at Accenture actually want me to go and do this and then come back to Accenture.
I
that would
appreciate
actually be their benefit.
this honesty is like so refreshing, Chase, because sometimes, right, we hear these stories on Instagram or on other podcasts of these entrepreneurs who are like, and I quit my 9 to 5 that evening because I trusted my gut and I read the tea leaves and lightning struck the tree outside my house and I saw a hawk fly by and I just knew. It's like all these, fake things that you're like, come on, man. Like, did you really do that? So I genuinely appreciate the fact that you're like, I kind of treated it like a consulting problem. I did a risk assessment. Yeah. I figured out how I could do the least amount of risk, how I could walk it back if it went wrong. And I went from there. So I think to Elevation Nation and our listeners out there who are struggling with some big decisions and are like, I'm waiting for a sign or I'm waiting for that gut feeling. Sometimes we are not programmed to be like that. Some people, they can trust their gut and somehow it works out. But other people need to kind of analyze the situation and the options and the pros and cons and figure it out. So Chase, I think that example that you gave of play it out in your head and figure it out is okay. And that's fantastic that you did that.
I don't disagree with you, Sam, but I sometimes go back and forth. Like there's two ways I look at this is if you're making a big decision like you made, Chase, here, like there are the people who make very calculated decisions. They try to analyze risk. They try to see if this is, what are the things I can control right now? In this sense, you knew that Accenture had this, leave absence program. You could go 3 months. You had this idea that you want to go into entrepreneurship. You know that the people at Accenture would accept you back. You understood all those things. But then I'm also on the other end. I'm like, sometimes people just need to go and do it because if they sit and they think about all the risk and they think about all the benefits, then they're just thinking and they're not doing. And that is a big challenge because you can think for a really, really, really long time and find yourself a year, 2 years, 5 years, or when you're 60 years old, you're looking back and you're like, wait, why didn't I make that decision? So I'm in both wheelhouses here.
Yeah. And I think, personally, I think both can be true. And both can be for the type of person, that you might be. So let me speak about the gut. When I was making the decision to do this, it's very, very little gut, very, very little in tune, sort of it was almost more, it felt more like a culmination of this makes sense as a next step. Because I've been, I can make a list, right? I've been thinking about entrepreneurship a lot. I attended the startup weekend thing. I have an opportunity in front of me, yada, 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 yada. It was, I think clarity really struck me on week one, possibly even day one, where almost immediately, I knew I was I can't go back. It's I have to make this work because something about this opportunity, something about this environment is where I need to be right now. And
walk
that
us
was
through that moment. What was that moment? You're sitting at your desk, are you walking around? Is it a reflection that you've had now, or were you feeling that literally in the moment, that emotional taken back? Wow.
Yeah. So I had been under an environment. So my client at Accenture was a startup. They were pretty late stage, but their dress attire was relatively casual. We had jeans pretty frequently, t-shirts pretty frequently, as Accenture consultants too, which was pretty unique, right? And so I felt the energy of what startup environments could be like, but I'll never there was a really big difference between I walked out on day one, week one of doing my own thing, with my partner. I had this feeling of just walking out of my apartment and just walking over to where we called the office, which is essentially this carriage house shed space out behind a house in Arlington, Virginia. And the way that it looked, the way that it felt, the vibe in there, the music that was playing, the coffee that was brewing, the that we had TV in there, we had whiteboard, we had couches in there. We had like everything just felt like home. Everything felt like, okay, this is like a really really creative space, and it felt a lot like freedom in some sense, where it's just like, okay, now it's sort of like I've cast off some of the obligations by being with another company, and now there's a tremendous amount of autonomy that exists here. I just remember that feeling of just like, okay, I told myself a mantra for a long time is like, live your life by design and not by default. And I really felt in that moment that I was like, wow, I have an opportunity to design everything about this. And I love design. So I wanted to like design everything from what was my workday going to look like? Not what I think it should be, but like, what did I actually want? And I'd never asked myself that question before. What do I want the team to look like in terms of their skills, their energy, their hustle, like their expertise? How is that all going to go about? It's like a question that I never had needed to ask myself before. And there's so much energy of just being in the driver's seat, essentially like co-captain with my business partner. That was the feeling that I had been looking for, where it's just like, oh, I can create here. And when by taking an action, there's a very, very direct result in terms of impact. And we can see that feedback cycle a lot more quickly. So it's just like, okay, if you didn't send the invoice to the customer and it didn't get paid, then we didn't have money coming in to the bank account. It's like, okay, very, very clear. We're not, sometimes I felt in corporate world, things would just go off into the ether, and I didn't have a holistic understanding of all the different components and why things were the way that they were. But in this case, it was a blank canvas. So it's just like, okay, well, I didn't like it there, so let's just do it another way. And that question was just so open. And I think that's what really made me fall in love with the environment of entrepreneurship is this, this idea is like you can create anything that you want. And there are no rules that you have to base yourself on. In fact, I felt more likely to bring in old contexts and beliefs from my previous environment into here, for better or for worse. I'll also remember one of the very first emails that I sent out had like the words urgent in subject line, right next, because it was, had to do with onboarding like one of our contractors. And I remember my partner saying, is like, hey, like, does it really need to be urgent? I'm like, oh.
Well,
and I never used it again.
You got to set that bar. I mean, right? Like the bar is set at urgent. And when you really have an urgent thing, you're like, ultra urgent. And then just keep going more and more.
And just keeps going more. But it invited a question is like, do we want to live in a culture where we have the word urgent in all caps in the subject line? It's like, nah.
It's crazy the differences, right? And how these things get programmed into our minds, having been in the corporate world for a while. But I want to go back to something, Chase, that we were talking about a bit, because I love this theme of trusting your gut versus analyzing the situation. I just think that's really interesting. And so you kind of mentioned you walked into the environment of this carriage house, right? What a scrappy way to start. You smelled the coffee, right? And we know that's where you ended up. And so that makes sense that they had good brewing coffee. And, you just felt this energy in the people and the autonomy and the freedom. And so that feeling was you trusting your gut that you were in the right place and that your more logical assessment that you performed to leave was the right decision. And I think it's interesting to Parker's point of you can use both. And I appreciate this example, Chase, where you did that analysis at the front end of figuring out the risk, but then you kind of just felt it. And you felt that energy. And I think that can happen as both I made the right decision or I made the wrong decision. And I'd like to give a quick story that I think Elevation Nation knows. But when the inspiration behind Elevation Nation for myself was, commuting from my apartment that was horrible and disgusting in New York, getting on the subway and going into Times Square, wearing a button down and making PowerPoint slides for insurance outsourcing that made no sense to me. I had no idea what I was doing. I still don't understand insurance. So like the fact that I was consulting on it made no sense. And I remember I was coming home from work and I missed my subway stop because I was so zoned out and I was getting bumped and bodied by people on the train. And I thought, holy shit, am I about to do this for the next 40 years of my life? And I didn't do a risk assessment. I didn't go, oh, well, what's going on here? Maybe I need to stay. I trusted my gut and I said, this doesn't feel right. This doesn't feel like Sam Panich's future. And so I did what I needed to do to change my trajectory. And so my lesson there for Elevation Nation is you can, I think it's beautifully said, and Parker, I'm glad you pushed back on my statement, was you can use that analytic side of your brain to look through scenarios and decisions, but also don't dismiss your feeling, your energy, and your gut, because it can tell you a lot of things, both good and bad.
Well said, Sammy. I like what you said. That was great. So Chase, you jump, you leave Accenture, you start this company, and then you move on from that company, right? And you start another company, correct?
Mm?
Or two companies. Break it down for us. How did it all go down?
Yeah, I felt the very end of my journey in the first company, I felt this sense of readiness to move on at the benefit of myself, the company, and our investors. And it felt like that had a tremendous amount of alignment. It's almost like a feeling of, hey, the initial job I was here for and like meant to be here for felt completed. So, but it was also a very, very difficult decision to arrive at that.
If I may ask, Chase, sorry to interrupt you, was that more of a gut feeling or an analysis that you did?
Ooh, that's a great question. So it was a very strong gut feeling that I needed analysis to help me better really like reconcile that feeling was there.
It's almost like we use the gut feeling as like the catalyst or the trigger. And then our analytical side is like, whoa, don't be so emotional. Let's take a step back and make sure that your gut's telling you the right thing. I feel like you and I, and I think Parker too, are similar, and that's how we kind of approach big decisions.
Yep, and that's exactly how it was, is really I was, I felt like I started counting the number of days where I was not feeling my best. I didn't feel like bringing my best. It felt like a lot of uphill pushing as opposed to what it had been, which is more pulling. And it took a while for that sensation to really click into my awareness, to be like, something is going on here. And now it's time to explore and dig into that. So where a lot of the analytical rigor came about as I did things such as look at patterns in my own journaling, like in my journaling pattern. It's like, what are messages that I've been saying in my personal journal for multiple weeks, multiple months, multiple quarters that are consistent across? Like, what am I actually like trying to tell myself here? This is also a period of time where I received coaching for the first time, and that really like helped build a lot more awareness and get in deeper tune with my gut and pay attention to what I'm trying to tell myself. And so both of those were very, very useful. I feel like the analytical piece at that point in my life, and this is no longer the case, the analytical piece was helpful because it almost gave me emotional permission to choose differently. Simply because as you were saying, a lot of our societal construct is one in which maybe we should like to be in this position, or maybe we should, climb the corporate hierarchy. Maybe that's like the best thing for us. But in this sense, these were both tools to be like, okay, at the end of the day is like, what do I like really, really want? And whatever the answer to that question is valid and true.
And sometimes that is the most difficult thing to come to, which is so interesting because we all sit there, we can all be like, what do I really want in my life? But Sam and I have talked about this idea that it's really challenging to come to terms with what you actually really want at your core, because it probably is going to flip a lot of the comfort things that you have in your life on its head. And sometimes, I think most of the time, that's really challenging to come out of, because what you really want is outside the comfort zone. And, you know, whether it's entrepreneurship, whether it's your romantic life, whether it's your, you know, you want to lose weight, whatever, you all have, I feel like I have this gut feeling all the time about the things I really want. But the thing that's holding me back is the comfort zone, is the thing that's like, wow, okay, you know what, I'll wait a week because I don't need to think about it. I don't need to push myself, even though deep down, that is where I want to go. So Chase, my next question is, you've learned all about this yourself. You are, I think, a perfect case study that you've gone through these experiences and you really thought about this idea of analyzing and, you know, those gut feelings, but then also analyzing what's in front of you to make a rational decision that's best for yourself. But now you're using all that knowledge and you're helping others do that and help others get to that point. So walk us through what that's like to work with entrepreneurs who are trying to find their path. They have amazing ideas and they just need a little nudge to, let's say, I mean, people you probably work with are changing the world.
Yeah. I find that the work currently with entrepreneurs is twofold. Number one, I believe that there is a set of standards or best practices or frameworks, mental models that exist to help accelerate learning, especially in non-differentiated pieces of the company. So as an example, for instance, no matter what company you're building, you are very likely to hire people. And so you need to learn about the world of recruitment and interviewing and assessment and employee onboarding, and all the way through the operational components of payroll and benefits and, you know, et cetera. So everyone, you know, if you're going to hire a person, everyone's going through and thinking about a lot of those things. That problem has been solved so many times. It's been solved so many times out there, and there's really no need to continue to reinvent the wheel on something that can be significantly de-risked with expertise, with someone who has been there or done that, either coached, advised, etc., their own personal experience. However, a lot of entrepreneurs spend a lot of their time thinking about it. And what they're not spending their time thinking about is, what is this company really about? Where are we innovating? Where are we creating? Where are we taking a bet or creating an experiment in a direction that we think could be possible, but maybe the expertise, we don't have great expertise to know, because the answer is true to ourselves. It's like, it's true to our product, it's true, or our service, it's true to our values, it's true to the culture that we have created. So, and to get some of those things, it often takes some mindset change, where sometimes other founders will know this, and I deal with this myself. Is like, I sometimes feel self-doubt in what I do. I sometimes have worries and anxieties about what exactly that I am building, and that I don't have all the answers figured out, and the amount of uncertainty in the environment is actually enormous. But I'm not alone. There are a tremendous number of entrepreneurs that do not have everything figured out. In fact, I'd argue that most do not. That are truly flying by the seat of their pants and taking things one day at a time and moving things forward. So, however, it's very, very easy to get stuck in your own head about whatever it is. It's like, did I make the right decision? Or I don't know what to do here. Or I have this difficult challenge, this difficult problem that I need resolved. That's where I think that a lot of my work has been the integration of all of these components together. I seek to help. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, Jay. I just wanted to say, and this is why we hit it off so much when we first met and then had our first call, because the problems that entrepreneurs that you're helping are facing, this self-doubt, this scared of going outside the comfort zone, this finding their purpose, is exactly the same struggles as young people are having when they're graduating from school or going into the real world, because we are the entrepreneurs of our own lives. We're the ones that are trying to create our story. Who is Sam Panitch? Who is Parker Yablon? Who's Chase Damiano, right? Who we are at our core is why we are the entrepreneurs of our own lives. And so why I love what you're doing and why it's essentially we're doing very similar things just for different people is we've taken a lot of your concepts, and I promise we didn't steal them from you, but you've inspired us more, is we have this concept of mental fortitude, right? And we broke it down for Elevation Nation is that's the missing piece that young people need. It's self-awareness, knowing who you are, vision, where you want to go, and accountability in order to get there. And I think there are just so many astounding similarities between that kind of framework and what you're doing with the help, that you're providing for entrepreneurs. And so I just wanted to say that point, because it's like I'm hearing you talk and I'm like, holy crap, Parker, this is like so aligned with mental fortitude and Elevation Nation.
Self-awareness is, I think, one of the most critical skills that a human can have. Like, if you can have self-awareness and like really get deep down into what makes you click, what throws you off, the things that you're good at, but more importantly, the things that you're not good at, all those things just help you align on that vision where you want to go. All those things, if you truly know yourself, then it becomes a lot more clear. But the challenge is, I keep trying to grasp it, the challenge is really taking that step back and understanding that for yourself, not for anybody else, for yourself, and building that vision on what you want. Yes, you want to do that because Chase, you have a family. You want to support your family. If you have a job, you got to do certain things to support the job and whatnot so that you can, help out with the common goal, but then also get paid and then all that. But like at the end of the day, it all starts inside you so that you can go and be fulfilled, feel happy, feel like you're making the world a better place. And it's challenging. It's hard because I think people think that once let's say the most successful people in the entire world, that they have it and then they found the key piece. No, they work at it every day and it never stops because they're always learning about themselves. It's not like you wake up one day at 25 years old, oh, I got self-awareness. That's it. The rest of my life is a breeze. No, it's a consistent thing. And that's where the mental fortitude comes in, is you realize that you continually need to work at it.
Yeah, I strongly agree. And self-awareness, vision, and accountability, I love that. And that really resonates. And I also agree that self-awareness is a powerful skill. It has personally served me in many contexts. And I feel like every time I feel like I have things figured out, it only reveals that the path is further and longer and there's more. And so for me now, it's almost like felt like more of an adventure. It's like I get an opportunity to, just like you said, it's like write my own story. And okay, well, what's the character like, and what does the character get into? And so I think that I felt a lot of pain in my past around trying to like really find like the thing. Where it's just like, all right, I'm a entrepreneur. Let's say that I'm a consultant. I'm a chemical engineer. All those things. Where it's just like where it sort of feels that you get to this clarity of definition, and can kind of like maybe take a break, and be like, okay, I figured out like my thing, and that feeling evaporates. It's gone. But the internal compass that we all have is like where our gut lies and what is being true towards like what it's trying to tell you. I think that it is a skill to like continuously get in touch with it, continuously listen, continuously be honest with yourself with respect to what do you like, what do you not like, what are you interested in, where do you want to go, versus what either society or our upbringing or prior experiences would suggest to you about it. And I have also felt that I had to go through a whole cycle of asking a bunch of people, like talking to a bunch of people and better understanding. It's like, okay, well, what about you? What should I do? What should I do? Here's my situation. It's like, what should I do? What should I be thinking about? And after talking with so many people, I realized it's like, wait a second. This is all very, very good advice, but I am the decision maker. I am the CEO.
You're the entrepreneur of your life.
I'm the entrepreneur of my life, right? And so that was the sort of thinking that helped me leave my first company and put me into a 3-month sabbatical, where I felt that was like the best move for me. That's what led me into coaching. That's what led me into a lot of the way that I operate life now is just like, it being okay and having the permission to do your thing, even if not everyone might agree with that. At the end of the day, you're the one at the top of your life, so might as well listen to yourself.
Permission. I love that. Giving yourself permission. Huh. Mm-hmm. I think oftentimes we don't give ourselves permission for a lot of things. And I think that's interesting. I think that's really interesting. But Chase, we've been talking for 45 minutes. We've been rolling with this thing. So much knowledge dropped. I can tell you're a very philosophical guy, and I feel like we could talk for days and days and days and days. But we got some rapid fire questions for you.
Ooh.
We always do them on Elevation Nation. We want to hear what's top of mind in Chase Damiano's mind. So,
all right.
First rapid fire question has nothing to do with philosophy or the mind, but what is your favorite spot to just be in the DMV?
Ooh.
I asked this one because I'm looking for cool spots, Chase. I'm not going to lie. So,
yeah, this is a biased answer, but I love coffee shops, specifically craft coffee shops. So Commonwealth Joe in Pentagon City, always biased towards that one. But there are a lot of craft shops. Where have I visited? I like the vibe of Emissary. I like the vibe there. I like the vibe of the Y Down. I like.
It's the coffee house vibe for you, Chase. I should have guessed that with your past. That makes sense.
Yeah.
That's where we're going to have to do our next in-person meeting then.
We will have to go there. Like,
I would love to.
Coffee shops for me is just like so much creative energy and potential that happen there.
Sure.
For me. And that's like what really comes up. So the more days I'm in coffee shops, the better.
It's beautiful. And so our next rapid fire, when you're in this coffee shop and hypothetically you have no work to do, which I know is never, and you're reading a book, what is the book that you want to recommend to Elevation Nation that they absolutely have to read?
Oh, man. I would say The Three-Body Problem by Cixin Liu.
Adding it to my list. I've never even heard. Man, this is great. Okay, go ahead.
I'm an avid science fiction reader, and that trilogy blew my mind.
I love it. We usually get such business book answers, so it's refreshing that we got something a little bit different. Thank you.
I have other recommendations. The Untethered Soul. Untethered Soul, Michael Singer, I believe. And it's a book all about awareness in terms of the spiritual nature of awareness and the realities and context of like, what is it like to be in a 3D body that is sort of like the meat suit that we carry around everywhere, So it was the first book I read that really explored some of those topics. Very, very fascinating. And he made a sequel called The Surrender Experiment, which he wrote about his life in which he completely and entirely surrendered to saying yes to every opportunity that he had been given through divine energy. And it's an autobiography where he talks about his life operating in that way and all of the wild, amazing things that he got into in order to do that, to just say yes.
I just bought it.
You sold me. I'm
done.
at it. It's added to the list.
Amazon's
That will
quick.
be read.
Usually, like,
Nice.
Chase, when someone sells it as well
So
as you
good.
did, I'm just like, screw it. You know, maybe I won't read it tomorrow. Maybe I won't read it for 3 years, but I have it on my bookshelf. And when it's time to pick it up, boom, it's great. I love it. All right, last question. You're sitting in that coffee shop. You're reading The Untethered Soul. You're exploring spirituality in our lives. What are you drinking? What is that thing you're drinking? How do you like your coffee?
If it's in a coffee shop, it's going to be a cappuccino. It's going to have latte art on it, because I love latte art. And but if it's not a cappuccino, it's a pour over that was made in a Chemex or a Hario V60. And the coffee used is a little bit on the light roast side to bring out some of the more unique or fruity or floral flavors that tend to be paired with lighter roasted coffee. And
God, I cannot wait for our coffee date, Chase. I am
Yeah.
so ready to learn all these cool things from you. That is sick. I'm looking forward to it.
The amount of coffee knowledge and like nerddom that has come from my experience. Like, I never thought in all my wildest years to be like, okay, this was like the thing that I got like expertise on, but you know, I would never learned it had I not made the jump.
Sure.
I'm not gonna like read a bunch of books about coffee. It's just more about experiencing it. So
More fun when you can smell it, taste it, and do it yourself.
Yeah.
I can imagine. Yeah, that's amazing. Well, I'm very much looking forward to that coffee date.
doubt.
Parker, when you're in the DMV, we'll all have to get together. But Chase, this leaves us to our final and most powerful question. We've had a lot of, words of wisdom from you throughout this entire episode. But one thing we love to do here at Elevation Nation is ask folks what their mental motto is. What's that phrase that they live by? And I'm very excited to hear yours.
yeah, I had to think about this. Mine is I wrote it down here. Honesty first. Most importantly, with yourself.
That's like the culmination of our whole conversation right now.
This is the coolest section we do by far because, yeah, everything just comes full circle when we hear like what's deep in your core. And he's okay. You're gonna have to take your selfie picture with that, Chase. He's holding up his mental motto sign. We'll put you on our wall of fame. Yeah, it's beautiful, and I think Parker kind of mentioned this earlier in the episode of we don't give ourselves permission to be honest or go outside our comfort zone or be introspective and reflect and be true to who we are. But if you can, man, it unlocks a whole different outlook that you can have on life.
Yeah, entirely. And I think one for the better as well, personally. And sometimes that requires a lot of unlearning of things. I mean, even in terms of identity. Like I had a lot of unwinding in terms of like even what it like what does it mean to bring masculine energy, and what does it mean to be a man in the context of career and self-worth and identity. And a lot of those things, like by doing this work, come into question. And the fun part is like you can have whatever answer that you want.
Be the entrepreneur of your own life.
Yeah.
I love it. Chase, this has been incredible. I know I speak for Elevation Nation. They're all listening to this and they're like, jaws are on the floor. Their mind is blown. But again, bringing it back to our story of how we met, so serendipitous that we were able to connect, man. I'm so honored and grateful that you gave us the time this evening. I know you got a family and businesses to run. So, from us, from Elevation Nation, thank you for opening up, sharing your wisdom. I cannot wait for that coffee date in the DMV when we're all together. And your pour over is on us because we owe you. And this was fantastic, man. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you so much, Sam. Parker, it's been a pleasure. And
They're the best conversations.
Yeah, love this conversation.
Put our phones away. just talk about life, talk about knowledge, and that's what
Yeah.
it's all
Good ones to
about.
have. Yeah,
Chase,
exactly.
can't thank you enough. Seriously, this was sweet. You know, you don't get a conversation like this every day. I mean, we have a lot of conversations, and not that the other conversations aren't amazing, because they are, but when you get deep, you get really rooted in like the philosophy of how we go about our lives and what can help us get to that next level. Well, we call that elevation. So, you know, that's the fun thing. But Sammy, it's that time.
Elevation Nation. Until next week. Peace. That was awesome, Chase.